Hello, Primac. This is my modeling project for Human Anatomy 1 Bio 201. And I am Mrs. Brian Gosling. And my project is on synovial joints. So synovial joints are freely movable joints where the opposing bone surfaces are separated by synovial fluid. And they're classified as diarthrosis, which is also freely movable joints. And they achieve movement at the point of contact of the articulating bone. So next is I drew out a chart saying where synovial joint really comes from. So first it's just joints, and then they're separated into two classifications: functional classification and structural classification. Out of structural, there's fibrose, cartilaginous, and synovial. And then synovial breaks down into movements and distinguishing features. For movements, it's plane joint, hinge joint, pivot joint, ball and socket, and saddle joint. And for distinguishing features, I will be covering in a little bit. Okay, so next part is going to be distinguishing features of synovial joints. Here are the bones. Here's your articular cartilage, which is connected to the synovial membrane. Here's the periosteum, which is on the outside of the articular cartilage and the synovial membrane. The joint capsule is connected to the periosteum. The inside, this whole area, is a joint cavity, which contains synovial fluid. Okay, so origins and insertion is where the muscle begins and ends. Origin is attached to the less movable bone, and insertion is attached to the movable bone. Movement occurs when a muscle contracts across the joint and insertion moves towards the origin. If a muscle does not cross the joint, there will be no movement. We're going to be talking about the lever system in the human body. And levers consist of two forces, which is effort force, which is also known as applied force, and resistance force, which is also known as load force. And these forces are acting around a fulcrum, also known as a pivot. And the distance from the applied force to the fulcrum is also known as the force arm, so this little part. And then the distance from the fulcrum to the load or resistance is called resistance arm, that little part. And at equilibrium, it is effort times force arm and resistance times resistance arm. So this, whatever is right here, times that, whatever is right here. And then the mechanical advantage is determined by dividing the force arm, which is this part, by the resistance arm, which is that part. And those are the three classes of levers.
Action.
Okay, so hi, I'm Dr. Tatum, Channing Tatum, and I will be talking about synovial joints and their movements and where they're located. So the first one is the plane joint, and the plane joint is non-axial, which means there's very little movement, and it is in between the carpals, which is on the hands. Next one would be hinge joint, and it's uniaxial, meaning there's only moves in one axis, and that will be located in the knees, elbows, and fingers. Next one is pivot joint, which moves in one plane. It's uniaxial, which means it only moves in one axis, and it will be located in the neck. Next joint would be condylar joint, which is two planes. It moves in two planes. It is biaxial, meaning it can move in two axes, and it would be located in the wrist. The next joint would be the saddle joint, which is two-plane movement. It's biaxial, meaning it can move into two axes. and it would be located in the thumb and the wrist, so where the thumb and the wrist connect. The next joint would be gliding joint. That one would be located in the ankle, where it only moves to two planes, so sideways and forward. And then the ball and socket. Ball and socket is multi-axis, which means it can move in any direction, moves in all axes, and it would be located in where the humerus and the scapula connect, so on the shoulder.